Hey guys, Redneck Mini 14 here. I want to talk today about a proposed gun control measure that I've seen going around the internet, and it's supposedly coming from the Trump administration, and that is, should we ban transgenders from being able to buy guns? And this one, there's a little bit of gray area in this one, but let me give my opinions of this. So, first and foremost, I absolutely do not agree with putting an entire group of people in a category and saying take all their guns away, because look throughout history with the Jews and all these other countries, Nazi, fascist countries and communist countries all throughout history, where they took guns away from this group of people and then something really bad happened to this group of people. It's really the same thing. So I'm not in support of taking guns away from an entire specific group of people. And I think, the reason that they're wanting or people are wanting to take guns away from transgenders is because it seems like a lot of the more recent mass shootings are done by transgenders. But I mean, really, I think it's really only a handful of mass shootings in history so far have actually been carried out by transgenders. I don't know all the statistics on it. I have not gone through and done my research on, what percentage of mass shootings were done by XYZ groups of individuals, but I do know this, that the majority of mass shootings, and I'm talking like actual mass shootings, not like these statistics that liberals try to bring up, where like, 4 people were shot by a BB gun, it's a mass shooting. No, I'm talking about real, school shootings and movie theater shootings, things like this. I think the vast majority of them throughout history have been carried out by white, straight men. And I don't know about you, but I'm a white, straight man, and I definitely don't want them saying, we need to take all the guns away from white, straight men because they're the problem. That's a terrible way of looking at things. And, I may have a certain set of feelings towards transgenders, but that doesn't mean that I think that we should take all of their guns away because they're the new bad guys. That's not the answer. So where the gray area comes here is that being transgender, for a long time, and even like when it comes to being homosexual, being homosexual was looked at as a mental disease, a mental disorder for a long time. And I don't know exactly when it became socially acceptable to be homosexual. But at some point in history it was, and now it's not looked at as a mental disorder. I look at that as being a little bit different than being transgender. I personally don't see being homosexual as a mental disorder. I just, I'm really not the person that should be talking about all the psychological stuff about this, but, being homosexual is, I don't think it makes you mentally unstable in itself. And being transgender or transsexual by a lot of people is being seen as a mental disorder, and I believe in some degree it probably is, because you're believing that you're in the wrong body and that you should have been born a different gender or a different sex. And in my opinion, if you were supposed to be that gender, you would have been born that way. That's just, we're talking about biologics here. So in some way, I would say that yes, being transgender is a mental disorder, but that does not mean necessarily that you should lose your gun rights. Because, I mean, think about it. If only a very small percentage of mass shootings have been carried out by transgenders, I mean, what is the percentage of actual transgenders in the entire country that are carrying out mass shootings? It's very, 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 very low, because being transgender is now socially acceptable in, you know, the whole country. It's become socially acceptable. And I will tell you, you know, if you want to, you know, go through all the surgeries and whatever because you want to change genders, and you're paying for that yourself, you're not paying for it on the taxpayer's dollar, you know, and you're a grown adult, you're 18 years of age or older. Like, that's nobody else's business but your own. If you want to do that, by all means, go ahead and do that. I don't really care. Where I do care is, one, if it's on the taxpayer's dollar, and two, if you're allowing children to do it. Because children under the age of 18, and in fact, I would say probably under the age of 25, your brain is just not fully developed to really understand things all the way. And, you know, but, you know, 18 is the legal age, and so we're just going to say 18 and under, it's not okay. Or under 18, it's not okay. 18 and over, it is okay. But, you know, I still feel like if you want to do that, that is some sort of a mental disorder. But, you know, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. And so I think that's where a lot of this comes in, is because a lot of people do see it as a mental disorder, and that there already is laws on people who are mentally disabled or have mental illnesses. There's laws keeping people like that from having guns. But there are various degrees of mental illness. So, you know, somebody who just is, you know, a transgender, and they're not like, say, schizophrenic or multiple personality disorder or things like that, where they have these huge mood swings and they're seeing things that aren't there. Like, you know, those kind of people, if they're not on their meds, they can be dangerous. And yes, I do think that it is probably a good idea to keep weapons away from those kind of people. And I'm not even talking about just guns, but knives and baseball bats, and, you know, because people who are schizophrenic have killed people with just whatever was around them. And I get that you'll never keep them from, you know, grabbing a brick or a rock or whatever, but you know, I can totally understand why you would want to keep guns and knives away from people like that, because they're very, very unpredictable. But on the flip side, somebody who is mentally ill and they just are transgender, you know, that's not necessarily a violent thing in itself. You know, the vast majority of transgenders are not violent people. It might seem that way because of social media and all the videos and things, and, you know, just how we get our information now, as opposed to back in the day. You know, we get a lot more information nowadays with social media and all that. And so it seems, especially with the most recent mass shootings, you know, that, you know, like 5 different mass shooters so far have been transgender. It might seem to some people that, oh, the transgenders are the bad guys. They're dangerous, you know, but that isn't necessarily the case. Now, if you are, say, a transgender and you're a schizophrenic, yeah, maybe we should think about not allowing somebody like that to have a gun or you know, any sort of weapons. But, you know, at that point, At what point do we put people in mental institutions because they are a risk to society? They're a danger to society. So there's a lot of questions, and I definitely don't have all the answers, but because I honestly am not the type of person who should really be, saying, this person deserves a gun, this person doesn't deserve a gun. I'm just giving my opinion on the matter, and my opinion is I do not agree with just lumping all of one type of human being in a category and saying, we're going to take your guns away, because that's not the American way, if I'm being honest. And I get that there are people who are mentally, have mental illness, and that they're a danger to society, and we probably shouldn't allow them to have weapons as much as we can, but that also goes in line with, are they taking their medicine, are they not taking their medicine, and who's making them take their medicine, because a lot of people, it's hard to keep people to taking their medicine. I mean, I am related to people who are schizophrenic, and sometimes they're on their meds and sometimes they're not, and it's you can't force somebody to take their meds. And so, I get it. I get where they're coming from, but I don't agree with it. Maybe something should change, and maybe being transgender should be seen as more of a mental disease, but I still don't agree that we should just blanket statement, all transgenders, we're taking your guns, because that's a dangerous precedent to set. Because, okay, so what, 5 transgenders killed a bunch of people in recent history? How many straight white men have killed, dozens of people in mass shootings in, all of history? So should we take all the guns away from the straight white men? No. Should we take all guns away from black people because of the amount of black gang shootings? No, because there's, gang shootings only account for a certain percentage of the black population, or, gang members in general only account for a certain percentage of the black population. There's tons of other good black Americans out there who are not violent. Same with all races and all genders, and well, there's only 2 genders. I'm just going to say that, but that's besides the point. Anyway, that's just my opinion of the matter. I get where people are coming from. I get that you feel angry and you want to do something, but that is a dangerous precedent to set. So, let's not... It's a slippery slope, what a lot of people would like to say. So let's not go there, because who's to say the next administration isn't going to say, well, got to take all the guns away from this group of people, and then later on we got to take all the guns away from that group of people because they seem dangerous, when really it's a very small percentage of people within this group of people that are actually dangerous. So we need to focus on the individuals and not the masses. Sorry guys, the battery died there, and I don't know where it died at, but what I was saying was I brought these 2 guns out because the AR-15 is the gun that everybody seems to always want to ban, and then the Lee Enfield Jungle Carbine I brought out because supposedly the rifle that was used to assassinate Charlie Kirk was a Mauser of some sort, which is typically when you talk about a Mauser, you're talking about a surplus rifle, imported rifle, and this is a different type of a imported surplus rifle. So anyway, that's why I brought those guns out, but I hope I proved my point, and I don't know where you stand on this, but if anybody wants to discuss this topic further, there's always the comment section, but just be respectful down there. If I see any disrespectful comments, I'll get rid of them.
Hey, before I go, I just thought I'd remind everybody that I do have a second channel called Redneck Off the Range. Over there, I post most of my non-gun related content, so whether it's a video on my new tractor, my power tools, my projects that I'm working on, maybe wild game recipes, or just a random vlog, I post all of this kind of content over on my secondary channel. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go check it out, Redneck Off the Range. But that's all for this video, so subscribe to my channel, like me on Facebook. I'm Redneck Mini 14, and until next time, be safe.